low, low, low. Goes up and down, so that works.
Yes.
Switching
Well,
our
I was telling Greg and Scott, I saw a
Religion and
mountain
politics I
lion
can talk,
by
but
my
that's not
house
appropriate.
rose.
Probably not.
Uh,
Source.
Yeah.
Did you
right, we're up.
Dave, I'm going to have you lead.
Yeah, fine.
All righty, I hereby call, it's so nice to see people here, the City of Buellton City Council meeting for July 8th to order 2021. If I could get Councilman King to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Put your hand over your heart, repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, we are going to play the agenda a little bit differently tonight. At 6:20, we must officially start the public hearing to receive input on district-based elections. That has to be done at 6:20. So I'm going to jump around a little bit with the council's approval. The first thing, that was the reordering of the agenda. Linda, if I could get you to do a roll call.
Councilmember Andrewsick.
Here.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sanchez.
Here.
Mayor Sierra.
Here. Thank you very much. All righty, so I'm going to temporarily skip public comments and the consent calendar, and we're going to move right on to what probably most people in the audience would consider the main event, recognizing Lieutenant Eddie Shui for his service to the city of Buellton. Sir, if I could get you right up here.
You won't need a raincoat.
I have a plaque for you that we had done about 1.5 years ago, Linda did, to thank you for your many years of service to the city of Buellton. You have been instrumental in our city's stance on crime, on law enforcement. Not only that, but you've helped with our youth in our community, and you have been the cops training for personnel for the sheriff's department. We really enjoyed the time that we had with you, and I just wanted to thank you. I've got this for you. If you want to say anything, and then you might have a couple people in the audience that would like to, it's not an official roast or anything, a toast. So, it could.
No.
You say, sir, or not. Oh. Do you want it with the whole council or?
Can we put John Zoom up there?
It's on,
Shall we get, is it okay?
but they're gonna need it.
Guys,
They're gonna
Okay.
need it to speak.
Dave, just lined up right here under our beautiful plaque.
Yes.
We'll Photoshop John in there later.
Okay, good. Anyway, you've been around longer than some of our council members, and we just truly appreciate the service that you've given to our community. So thank you very much. If there's anything you want to say or don't want to say.
Well, first I'd like to thank Madam Mayor and City Council members. It's always been a pleasure working with the City of Buellton. Your leadership and common sense approach has been very refreshing, and it was an honor to work with you and for you. And you're all heroes. You do this on your own time, and you care about the community, and you do it on your own. You don't get anything really to do this, and it's kudos to all of you, and I really appreciate you all. Even though you're an ex-highway patrolman.
Even Dave, huh?
No, Dave, you're all great. City manager, leadership of the city manager.
How many city managers have you been through in Buellton?
4, 5 maybe. So going back a little ways. Scott, you're very lucky to have Scott. I think you got the cream of the crop. And Linda and all of your staff has been great. You manage the city very well, and I've always been very impressed with all of you folks. So I just want to say thank you, and it's been a pleasure and honor, and thanks for the sheriff being here and all my padres that I worked with. It's kind of surprising. I wasn't really expecting this. So.
Well, Sheriff Brown says that when you retired because of COVID, we've had the plaque here for a year and a half now, but it was just the two of you. So this is an opportunity now for your coworkers to have a chance to say something too, because you are held in very high esteem. Shall we start with Sheriff Brown?
Eddie, are you retired?
Yes.
Nice, good for you. Every day is a Saturday. Well, thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of the council. It's an honor to be here tonight. I thank you for recognizing Eddie Schway for the great career that he's had as a peace officer with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. And as you mentioned, I said that Eddie retired right at the start of the pandemic, and he had the world's smallest retirement party. It was him and I, and some takeout Mexican food, and then we had a great cigar afterwards. So we had a great time. It was very good. But I'm really glad that you're getting some public recognition, the opportunity to have other colleagues here to recognize this man for his tremendous career. And he is an incredibly compassionate person. He's one of those people that just really looks out for the underdog and looks out for people who need our help and our assistance. And when I first came as sheriff, he was very heavily involved in Youth Activities League that was really, it was all about him, really. He's the one that was the driving force behind it. And that was a casualty of budgets and other things over the years. But he's also had this very soft spot in his heart for people who struggle with mental illness, and was instrumental in helping us get some of the programs that we have today. And our co-response program, our behavioral science unit, the critical incident training that we put our people through, it's all part of a legacy that he was involved in, and it was it really showed that cops can be tough at times, but they can also be compassionate and fair, and we need to be with people who are mentally ill and struggle with addiction, oftentimes co-occurring, and homelessness, oftentimes co-occurring. So I just want to say publicly thank you, Eddie, for a great run. We appreciate all that you did for the organization and for the people of Santa Barbara County. And well done. Glad you got this opportunity.
And he's really, really strong.
Would anybody else? Lieutenant Green?
He likes to sit in the back, doesn't he?
Doesn't he?
Hey, Eddie, I don't know if you realize this. This is the third time I've come behind you, right? I took your squad when you left Central, and then I came in behind in records and helped you create CIT and BSU. And I think that's just one of the biggest things that you could have done for the whole community of Santa Barbara. I think it's great. You literally have one of the biggest hearts. I appreciate that I can call you at any time and you still are available to me and help me out as I try to fill your rather big shoes here. And I just appreciate everything you've done throughout my career, and thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Mike Gwynn. I'm a deputy with Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. I had the privilege and honor to work for Eddie 90% of my career. It started out with him as my sergeant, and then he became my lieutenant. We've had a great run, as they might say. We worked on the COPS board together, and we're able to put together some weightlifting tournaments, and the guy is just always putting out for the community. So I've always looked up to him and will continue to do so. And it's been an honor and a privilege working for you and with you. Thank you.
Anybody else? All righty. Anybody in council want to add anything or?
Well, I would just say that it was a pleasure for Eddie to be here, and he was always right on the money when we had a question about some issue here in town. He always got back to us if you called him on the phone, or you could just talk to him out in the parking lot and, resolve any kind of issues that we had as a community. And I really appreciate his service to Buellton.
Hear, hear. Well, once again, we're sorry for the delay. COVID, it happened. But we sure appreciate you coming back to the best end of the valley for a proper goodbye. And I can see that you are well respected by your own community. And our community and the valley wide. We're just glad you still live here in the area. And we appreciate everything you've done. So thank you very much. Righty. Alrighty. You guys are welcome to spend the rest of the meeting here. We love having company. It doesn't happen very often, but we truly get it if you have other appointments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie.
Coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Alrighty, I think we have time to squeeze in the consent calendar. So I'm going to move to that next. We have the minutes of June 24, 2021 regular city council meeting. List of claims to be approved and ratified for payment to date for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Designation of voting delegate and alternate for 2021 League of California Cities Annual Conference Business Meeting, and authorization to pay bills for fiscal year 21-22 sheriff contract received and due before August 12th, 2021. Any questions for staff?
Move for approval.
All righty, Linda?
Okay, Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis. Aye. Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sanchez.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. I think we have time for public comments. So we will move on to public comments. This is for anybody who wishes to speak about any item on the agenda, off the agenda, 3 minutes. And I have Joe Armendariz as our first public speaker.
Thank you, Mayor Sierra. Good evening, everybody. Joe Armendariz, representing Natural Healing Center. I'm the, I always want to say the executive director. Old habits die hard. I'm the government affairs director for Natural Healing Center. I made a
Thank you.
for your benefit, and I lucked out that John's not here, so I can use his. I wanted to come tonight and appreciate you giving me an opportunity to do so.
Of course.
To make a suggestion, with all due respect, albeit something that is near and dear to my heart and the heart of our company. Back in November 8th of 2016, the voters of California voted in favor of Prop 64, which in essence legalized recreational use cannabis in California. And by the way, 56.2% of Buellton voters voted in favor of Prop 64. Subsequent to that, the mayor, or the governor, I should say, signed an executive order that then created the conditions for this industry to be regulated and taxed. And so what I'm here tonight to do in my 3 minutes is to propose that the city of Buellton establish a structure to regulate our company that is interested in opening up a medical products only. So I want to make sure that I distinguish between medical and recreational use cannabis dispensary here within the city of Buellton. And we believe that by doing this would be in the best interest of the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Buellton. I want to refer to a few graphics. And by the way, Scott was kind enough to forward you the links that I was not able to include in my presentation. But as you can see, 44% of all Americans now live in states where cannabis is legal. 92% of Americans say marijuana should be legal under certain circumstances. And this is just two examples. I could literally bore you to death with thousands of examples of studies that are talking about the medicinal benefits of cannabis. If you could just go back to that slide real quickly so I could, for example, cancer patients reduce their intake of opioids following medical cannabis treatment. Another study shows that pain patients report reduced prescription drug use as a result of cannabis. So our little catchphrase lately is plants over pills, because we think that it's a much better way to achieve remedies and therapies. And I want to just give you a real quick summation of who we are. We are a vertically integrated company. We're one of the largest vertically integrated cannabis companies in California. We have 5 dispensaries across 3 different counties. We have 18 cultivation ranches across 3 different counties. We have 100 employees. By the end of this year, we'll have over 200 employees. We think that we are one of the premier operators in the state. We're very proud of our track record. If you can go to the 2 slides from there. I want to leave a minute for a quick little video for the benefit of those who have maybe not seen the inside of a cannabis dispensary. Would be the next screen, and hopefully this will work. There's an embedded video. So there's some schematics of our 5 dispensaries, including our San Luis Obispo store, which will be opening in about 60 days. Our Turlock store will be opening up in about 120 days. Right across the street from a Costco. We're very excited about that. On the lower left is our Grover Beach store. That's our first store. We did 25 million in sales last year. We're very proud of that store. Our Lemoore store, there in the middle, is I think one of the most beautiful dispensaries you're going to ever find in California. And then the Morro Bay picture right there on the far right is our newest store to opened. And this next video, it's a 1-minute video, will show you what that store looks like.
Thank you.
That is, there should be you should be able to click on that video and.
Clicked on it. We'll see if it's going to work.
I have confidence.
No, I'm not so sure. Yeah, it is.
It's a beautiful picture.
Let's see. No, it doesn't look like I've got an embed here. Let's see.
Up on top.
Okay, well, it doesn't look like that. Like that's going to work.
No.
I will make sure I send you the link that you can all watch it at your own leisure. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to come here. I realize that this is a rather sort of perfunctory presentation that I'm making to you, but I thought that it would be helpful to at least get this idea out there and start germinating and see where it goes from that. I'll shut up now, but I just want to leave you with an important point, and that's a very important point. What we are proposing is a medical products only. So we're not proposing a recreational use dispensary.
So do you still have to have a medicinal license to get into it then? Is that what you're saying? Or
you would have to be 21.
products?
You would have to be 21 years of age to get in. But it wouldn't require a medical card, but you'd have to be 21 years of age to get into our dispensary, but you wouldn't be able to purchase any recreational products in that location. And of course, this is very early on in this process, assuming that it is going to be a process, and we can figure out what those type of things look like as we proceed. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate it. Do we have any other public comment? Please step up, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Tom Woodrow here. Let's see, I'm here speaking on behalf of the Santa Barbara County Taxpayers Association, of which I'm the new executive director. And I wanted to reintroduce the organization. I know that Councilmember Andrzik has been part of that, and maybe you want to participate again. So we're the only organization that represents all 450,000 residents of our county, right? Everyone pays taxes, okay? Doesn't matter if you're what ethnicity you are, what income level you are. It doesn't matter what party you are. We're nonpartisan organization, and we weigh in on important issues at local and certainly at the county level. Most recently, we spoke on behalf of public safety and the sheriff vis-a-vis a proposal that some activist groups wanted to siphon off about $27 million from the sheriff's jail. And we spoke in opposition to that because it's a bad idea. And we think the taxpayers of Santa Barbara County put public safety as a high priority. And I know we do here in Buellton. So, on those issues, I'll occasionally appear here, certainly in support of issues that benefit our county when it comes to how we spend our public monies. Also wanted to say, in relation to what Joe Armendariz just said regarding cannabis, we've weighed in favor, as taxpayers organizations I think should do, when you look at cannabis as a legal source of revenue. I think it's a good idea. As you know, as an individual, not necessarily my taxpayers hat, I'm a proud resident of Buellton, been here over 10 years. I have 4 kids here. I personally don't see any problem with having a retail operation. I have a friend who suffers from multiple sclerosis, and he uses prescription cannabis in order to alleviate his pain regimen. And I have another client of mine, a CPA, who has shoulder pain, and now he's able to get a full night's sleep. So to me, I've learned a lot about cannabis in the last few years. I've also represented some clients that have sought to open some retail cannabis operations. And so on a personal level, as a father, as a family person here in Buellton, I don't see a problem. I don't see safety issues that I've heard about associated with them with the stores in Santa Barbara. But on a personal level, I don't have a problem with that either. They're well regulated. There's a high degree of security. And I think I don't want that revenue going out of my town, Buellton, and going to Santa Ynez, where I know they're opening one. I don't want it just to go to Lompoc or just go to Santa Maria. I love Buellton, happy to live in Buellton, proud of what you're doing as council members, proud of what we do in one of the safest, I think, best cities in our county. And I'm grateful to all of you for overseeing that. So on a personal and professional level, I think it's worthy of consideration.
Thank you very much, sir, and congratulations with the Taxpayer Association. Thank you. I'm not going to close public hearing. I'll extend it, but I do need to get to our certain time, 6:20 public hearing. I'll come back and do public comment and close it if needed after that. But I am moving on to agenda item number 6, the second public hearing to receive input from the community regarding the creation of a district-based election system. Ms. Reed.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. On June 10th, the council conducted its first public hearing to discuss the creation of district-based elections. And tonight will be the second public hearing that seeks public input in drafting district maps. The hearing was published and mapping tools are available on the city's website and also at City Hall. Daniel Phillips from National Demographics Corporation is joining us tonight, and he'll be explaining the mapping tools via presentation and discuss the next steps in the process and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
So that concludes the report. Daniel will now share the screen and go over the mapping tools.
Welcome, Mr. Phillips.
Good to be with you. Let me pull up my presentation. Now, if you were here last time I spoke with you, this is going to be a very similar presentation to what I shared before, but I will have new tools that I'll be able to demonstrate at the end of this presentation. So just a recap about the election systems. You are moving from the at-large election system to the by district system. And this was because under the California Voting Rights Act, or CVRA, you are more liable for lawsuits if you are in an at-large system than you would be if you were in a by district system. And you see here the amount of money that has been spent either fighting or settling these cases. And so it makes good fiscal sense for the approach you're taking to move to a by district system. So the process looks like this. We already had our first hearing back on the 10th of June. This is the second hearing tonight. And then we're going to have a pretty extensive break between now and the next hearing, which will be January 27th. Because in between that time, we'll receive the official census data and be able to start drawing draft maps. And these will be released on January 20th, and then we'll have those hearings on the 27th of January and February 24th to be eventually adopted on the 10th of March. The rules and goals for drawing districts, first is you have to follow federal law, which are equal population districts are pretty close to equal. Federal Voting Rights Act, which means making sure you're not diluting the vote of any minority or protected class group. But no racial gerrymandering where you make race or ethnicity the sole consideration. And number two is state law. There's a set list of rank order criteria that the state has recently enacted, which is the law is called the Fair Maps Act. And so it has this rank order criteria. First is that the district should be one piece. You should make sure that neighborhoods and communities of interest are not divided. Follow easily identifiable boundaries like roads and highways and maybe railroads. I don't think there's a railroad that goes through town, but yeah. And then fourth is compactness, to not bypass one group of people to get to a more distant group of people. And then you have this prohibition at the bottom here: you shall not favor or discriminate against a political party. So we're not considering where people of certain political parties are concentrated. It's just about what the communities, what the neighborhoods are. And then you have other traditional districting principles that you may consider, such as respecting voters' choices / continuity in office by avoiding pairing up incumbent council members so that one is forced to leave the council, but to try to keep them in separate seats so that the only way that they can leave is because the voters decide they should not continue. And then if you are anticipating a new housing development on the horizon, you can account for that by purposefully underpopulating a certain district while not straying too far from equal population. This is the demographic summary of your city. And you can see here that just under 5,000 people are estimated to live in your city as of 2020. Again, this is an estimate based on our best judgment as based on the figures we have, but the official census data is yet to come. Our hope is that the official census data will not be too different from the number you see here. And also important to note is this area of the table called citizen voting age population. And that is important because in order to follow the Federal Voting Rights Act, this is something you need to consider, which is where citizen voting age residents of your city of various races or ethnicities concentrate. And the next slide, but each of the districts must contain about 1,200 people in a 4-district map with an at-large mayor. And that this presentation has been posted on the City of Buellton's districting website. So you're welcome to go and look at this for more information. When it comes to Latino citizen voting age population, you see here that they tend to concentrate along Highway 101 in these census blocks that are red or yellow, which represents a greater than 65% percentage. There are no concentrations of other protected class groups. When it comes to defining neighborhoods, there are 2 questions to ask. First, what are the neighborhoods in the city? And second, what are their geographic boundaries? And examples of physical features that might define neighborhood boundaries include major roads, rivers, hills, areas around parks or schools, or other neighborhood landmarks. In the absence of public testimony, planning records and other similar documents may provide definition. So we'd like to hear from the public about what the neighborhoods are, but if we don't get that information, we can look elsewhere. Now, looking beyond neighborhoods, we have this additional term, communities of interest, and that it's similar but slightly different. It is a geographic area, but it's also connected with a shared issue or a characteristic that's impacted by city policies. And so there might be a certain community of interest within the city that would merit protection, being kept together within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. This map shows the zoning for the city. So the red is the commercial area, and then you have gray, which is industrial. There is 2 mobile home parks in brown. You have a planned residential development in yellow, and then you have single family residential in this more orange-like color. You also have multifamily residential in the darker orange, so apartments and the like. So just to give a sense of these could be possibilities to consider when you're thinking about neighborhoods or communities of interest. Now, in order to facilitate your task here, we have provided various public mapping tools, and they run the gamut, but whatever tool you want to use, we welcome all submissions. And there is a place on the districting website where you can actually download a map, and then that map will tell you how to submit it. You can submit it by email, or you can mail it in to City Hall. This is a interactive review map that shows you different data layers and just helps you get a sense of what the city looks like and what the various areas are. Then you have this paper map tool, and I'm purposefully going quickly through this because I want to actually show you the Buellton materials. So this is just examples of what those look like. And then you have this online tool called District R. We do not have that available yet for Buellton data, but we're hoping very soon we will have that available, and then you can start playing around with that, which will allow you to actually go in and use a paintbrush tool and paint in your districts. So you can draw block by block throughout the city. So the goal of this public hearing is to find out what are the neighborhoods and what are their boundaries, and what are other notable areas in the city. And I'm also ready to receive any questions about the mapping tools, and I will go into those briefly here just to demonstrate what those look like. So the first one I want to pull up is, this is called the Buellton 2021 Districting Public Participation Kit. And you'll see that the city has been divided up into smaller population units, which will serve as the building blocks for you to build your districts. Now, if these are too big and you would like to use smaller units to build up your districts, I can show you how to do that. But if you want to use this tool, it shows you the number of people we estimate live in each of these population units. And then you can manually calculate how many would live in a particular district that you draw. And you can put your name and information, and you'll see how to submit it here. But we also have this version, which is slightly different. It's the same population units, but rather than showing the number of people in each population unit, it just has ID numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, going west to east. And this is to be used with a Microsoft Excel kit supplement. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So you should see here that there are 3 tabs. There's an instructions tab, which will tell you how to use this tool. Then you go to assignments, and you see here that there are 24 population units, and you see the ID number for each population unit. And so depending on what district you want to assign each population unit to, you just type that in to the yellow cells. And so you would do something like this. And as you do that, you should see that there are changes happening up here in this top row. And that tells you that as I have added people to this district, I am now closer to the ideal population. So with these two population units in District 1, I am 220 people away from the ideal population, which is 1245. But if I add in this population unit, now I'm only 2 people away, and I'm essentially good. And so I could continue that for District 2, District 3, District 4, however you want to do it. And then once you go to the results tab, you can see what the stats are for the districts you create. So the nice thing about this tool is Excel does the math for you, and it will also give you breakdowns for race, ethnicity, etc. The final tool I want to show you is the interactive review map. So if you go to the Buellton district website, you'll see the links to the PDF maps and the Excel supplement in English and Spanish. But the interactive review map is the first link you can click on. And once you do that, it will take you to this screen, which will show you instructions about how to use the map. You'll see that there's a legend, but the layers is where you'll find the different data layers. And in particular, I wanted to call your attention to the census blocks layer, because that will show you how many people live in each census block. And that is actually the smallest unit that we have available with estimated data. If you don't like the base map, you can go to the base map gallery and change that. So maybe you prefer the satellite imagery, or maybe you want something that looks like this. So whatever suits you, you can try out these options. And then if you are content to use the population units that we came up with, you can select one of those either with the ID numbers or the population counts. And you can see we also have data such as the zoning and the citizen voting age population that is Latino, as well as some other demographics of interest. So I will return to my last slide. And just remind you of the what information I'm interested in, basically what the neighborhoods are, what are their boundaries, questions about the mapping tools. And in particular tonight, since this is our last hearing before draft maps will be able to be drawn, we would like to have council discussion and even action on the list of neighborhoods that you feel are important to your city, that are communities of interest that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. So if you can actually identify and list some of these entities and give us a sense of what their boundaries might be, that would be very helpful as we continue in this process. So that is it for my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to receiving your questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Are there any questions for Mr. Phillips? I just had one. You said that you're using the US Census for this. Is this the current census? We put off our districting so that we had the right, most current numbers. Has the US Census from the last count come out?
No, all the numbers that I've showed you are estimates. These are estimates that our company has come up with that are well-informed. They're based off of 2010 census counts, but also with more recent American Community Survey data. And so we have this formula and this methodology we use to try to get our best guess of what the 2020 population is. And our hope is that once the official census data come in, it will be very close to our estimate. But we want to provide these estimates now so that if members of the public want to get started and play around with this and start drawing maps, they have the option. But once the official census data does come in, we'll input those into all our mapping tools so that they have the accurate information.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any idea when that's going to be? I know they keep putting it off.
Yeah, so last I heard, it's mid-August when the census will release their official data, but then the state they have a statewide database that takes all the prisoners and reallocates them to their last known residential address. And so that will add another 2 to 4 weeks to the timeline, because by law, we have to use the numbers that come from that statewide database.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And compliments for how in-depth this is. It's really, it's fun playing with. I'm looking at the numbers and trying to make figures in my own head. It'll be fun to get home and play with it. So thank you very much. Any other questions from council?
Madam Mayor, I would be interested in the mechanics of, should the community, we don't have the community here, and once the lines are drawn, it's not unusual to have a large showing of people that are determined to make new boundaries. So what is the process, or how long does it take to let the community have what they want?
So, sir, that's actually the process that we're starting right now. You're starting with census tract boundaries.
August.
Right. So mid-August, September, the maps will become even more defined. But what we're asking the public to do is to go on the city's website or come into City Hall and get the maps, and then draw based on kind of the rules on balancing the numbers to make sure the 4 districts are roughly equal, to draw the maps that they think would be appropriate. And then the city clerk's office will collect those, work with the consultant, along with the maps that the consultant might be drawing based on their own understanding of what they hear from the council, what the research they've done. And then they'll present literally every single map to the council. The ones professionally drawn, every single map drawn by any resident who submits one, the council will see all of them. And then the council will ultimately make a decision. But any member of the public that wants to get involved has multiple opportunities to do so over the next 4 to 6 months.
Wow. They can go out 6 months and still be making changes.
They can be, if they have some ideas and they input them in August and then have different ideas in December, they can go right ahead and do that.
Okay.
Righty.
Subject to change. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, I'm opening this up for public comment. Was there another question?
We have a question from Vice Mayor Sanchez.
Vice Mayor Sanchez, I'm sorry to ignore you, sir. What is your question?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to understand that the first slide you had 3 categories on it. And as I understood, the second category of the rules said that you would write the lines not to exclude council members. Would you, so that one wouldn't be voted out, or did I misunderstand that?
Maybe I can help with that again, sir. so the third category, sort of the third priority list, priority list 1 is federal law, priority list 2 is state law. And then the third priority list would be to keep council members in office if it's consistent with state law and consistent with federal law, so that the public have the chance to decide, do they want the council members to stay or do they want the council members to go? We don't want to put 2 council members into a district if we can avoid it, but we might have to if federal law or state law, those other things that Scott's showing right now, equal population, no racial gerrymandering, keep neighborhoods together, have easily identifiable boundaries. We can't create gerrymandered districts just to keep the council in place. But if the districts make sense, then it is, a fact. The voters have put the council in place, and we want the voters to have the chance to vote for the current council again, if we can do that consistent with the law. So that is something we'll try to do if it's possible and allowable with what state and federal law mandate that we do. It is a consideration, but it's not the top one.
All right, thank you very much. I understand.
Councilman King?
I do have one question. I was looking at this map, and this is, and I went to my particular neighborhood just because it is completely blocked out on its own. And if you click on that, it's ID number 20, area 01.
Oh, you're area 13.
Not according to this little block. I'm going just on the, have you got the little block map of that area? Well, maybe just 13. Anyways, when I go to the information on there, it says population 50. Is this based on voters? People of voting age, or is that the entire population of that particular sector?
Could you please make it clear to me what population unit are you referring to?
Okay, it's on the far east side of your map, and it is, or right side if you want to call it, and where it says Quail Run Road. That's my particular neighborhood. And when I click on that and I go to the information in that particular sector, what it does come up with is it says population.
Are you referring to the interactive review map or the static paper maps?
The base map gallery is what I'm on, and then I click on interactive, right? Base map gallery is what I'm looking at.
Okay.
I click on that. I'm just I guess what the basic question is, are all these populations in these particular sectors based on adult voters or the entire population of those areas?
These are population, total population, so everyone is included.
Councilmember King, I will note that on this particular block that you're looking at, that only includes the homes that are on the inside of that square. A good number of homes in your neighborhood are on the outside of that block.
Really?
Yeah, so you see the blue line here that's on the screen right now?
Right.
That the boundaries on that are Ballard Canyon Road
gotcha.
and Quail Run Road.
Okay,
So
I expanded it. Okay,
Yeah.
now I see what you're saying. Okay, the other section is included in
that's
what's,
in
Thumbelina.
correct.
May I say one thing, which is it's unfortunate the way that the Census Bureau drew a lot of these census blocks, because they, like this block in particular, it goes way out to this side of the neighborhood, and that it may not make the best sense, a lot of these blocks, but we have to use what the census provides us, unfortunately. And so we have a particular challenge with this census block. This census block has 787 people in it, which is almost enough to be its own district. And so that we may have the option of, if we can help it, we'd like to stick with the census blocks that we have here. But if there's no other way around it, we do have experience splitting census blocks in order to satisfy important legal criteria.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Councilman King, in 2010, Vineyard Village was not there. So
Right.
that count of 261 for
Right.
your area does
Right.
not include the population in Vineyard Village.
Darn. Okay.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Hearing none, I'm going to open it up for any public, for our public hearing. Is there any public who wishes to speak on this agenda item? Nobody on, okay. Hearing that, I am closing the public hearing, bringing it to council for comments. I guess my only comment is that Buellton has grown a lot from 2010 to 2020. And these numbers, I mean, in certain areas, they're totally valid, but there's entire blocks of housing that have come in the last 10 years that are not part of this. So I think the numbers are going to get skewed a little bit. I totally understand that you have, the census is the best way at this point to go with it, but when the new census numbers come out, it's going to change.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And maybe because the numbers may not be super reliable at this point, it may make more sense right now to concentrate the discussion on what the neighborhoods are and what the communities of interest are that should be kept together to the extent possible. And that's my main goal for this hearing is to get a sense from you, the council or any members of the public, what the important neighborhoods and communities of interest are that so that once we get the census data and start drawing maps, we can make sure that the districts we draw do not split those neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. Any input? I know that 101 and 246 pretty much divide our community. So I would see that as existing neighborhoods. Would you agree that, 246 kind of cuts us in half and 101 cuts us down into quarters?
Madam Mayor, if I can just jump in with a suggestion, we can identify the most obvious neighborhoods. Obviously, the Ballard Canyon neighborhood, the Thumbelina neighborhood, Rancho de Maria, the Vineyard Village neighborhood. Those are fairly easy to identify. It becomes a little more maybe difficult or subject to interpretation when we start looking at neighborhoods, let's say at the west end of the city, surrounding Oak Valley and Hanada Middle School, and where dividing lines are between quote neighborhoods.
I know you've cut my street in half.
Sure. Yeah, it gets
see
to be pretty homogeneous throughout that area. So we can certainly work with the consultants to identify the established neighborhoods. But if there are preferred or identified boundaries for neighborhoods or communities where that defining line isn't necessarily quite so clear, that's where we could use the input from the public and or the city council.
Okay. Council?
I think
Another question.
trying to get in my mind is
Hold on just a sec, Vice Mayor. You're right after Councilman Andrusik.
if there's a rising from community groups going out in the neighbors and saying, this is important and I need your support and we have to change this. What is that time frame? Because I can see a community having a reaction and people don't say you can't do that because.
So
they can do just
in
about anything.
general, what will happen, sir, is the maps will be set after the council holds 2 more hearings, gets all the maps that have been submitted, works through them all. The council is going to set district boundaries in March of 2022, and those district boundaries will hold until the next census.
Okay, that's 10 years.
That's 10 years. And then after the next census, you'll take a look at those boundaries and say, okay, which ones need to be adjusted because of shifts in population? And I say any of the 5 of you may still be on the council then. Any of all of us might not be working here anymore, but this is a census-based process. So next time it'll happen probably, 2031, just like it's happening right now in 2021.
And that's why I'm just thinking, if we can be apprised of, what other communities, have there been changes that just all of a sudden in 6 months, it's completely realigned? And what are the restrictions? Because I don't know if it's a filing and an agreement and then a vote being taken, or the law is the law and it says you're not going to change the boundaries once they're established for 10 years.
That is
So
it, sir.
that needs to be made pretty clear to people, because you'll have people come in and with a list of signatures and saying, these people do not want this to happen. And they say, sorry.
We will make sure that at the hearings in the early part of 2022, when the consultant brings the maps in, that is part of those hearings, so that the public
Okay.
understands in those two public hearings exactly how important this is.
Those are the time keys that need to be understood by all of us.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
And looking at, oh, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Sanchez.
Yeah, that was kind of my gist of the question was, if the next time there's an election, somebody wants to be in on a certain block and they see the lines are different and drawn different for the existing voted in people, is that going to be something that they're going to be able to challenge? We're going to have, it's not going to be straight up and down lines like Gaylord Drive, Central, 246. It's going to be something different than that. I just was wondering about if we're setting up to be challenged, but that's the challenge. You're saying that challenge won't happen until census of 31, right?
That's right, sir. What will happen is people will have a chance to challenge the maps when they're adopted. And that any challenge would be based on the fact that the maps violated one of those three categories of rights that we talked about earlier, either the federal law, the state law, or just sort of the general needs of the community. And they can bring a challenge, but once the maps have become finalized, you'll adopt them. Your adopting tool, ordinance, or resolution becomes final. They get transmitted to the county. The county sets them up as the official maps for the city. At that point, it's over. They won't then be challenged. They would be challenged the next time around. In between, the only potential challenge that I could see is if the maps were viewed as racially biased in the same way that at-large voting was viewed as racially biased when we received our initial California Voting Rights Act complaint letter. That might happen in the middle, but it's very unlikely to happen because you do have a highly qualified consultant leading us through this process.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You don't want us you don't need us tonight saying that we should keep certain neighborhoods together.
If there is a desire on the part of the city council, I believe that Mr. Phillips would be looking for that this evening, although it can certainly come to us later and we will pass that on to Mr. Phillips if you'd rather not do that at tonight's meeting.
Well, are we trying to keep certain groups together? Is that?
We will work through that as we go through the process, and that is the goal, is to try and maintain the integrity of established neighborhoods, but we don't necessarily have to iron that out tonight.
Okay.
What we're looking for is if there's any concerns from the public or any concerns to the city council of a given neighborhood that might have a given group of people in it that should be kept together for one reason or another.
I believe 8 and 9 should be. That's on the zone map.
Mr. Phillips, did you catch that?
Could you please repeat that?
Zone 8 and 9.
Oh, are you referring to the population units on the map?
No, I'm actually looking where you've numbered them from up to 24, going from west to east.
Yeah, the
population unit ID numbers.
Yes. Okay, so 8 and 9.
8
so
and 9.
That Central Avenue corridor.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments, suggestions from council?
Daniel, one thing, did you want to discuss sequencing as far as because we have to decide which two are going to be on the ballot November 22 along with the mayor. So I know that was one item that you might have wanted to discuss tonight.
You know, usually that comes later in the process once we actually have different map options to consider, and then we give a proposed sequencing for each map option, and then you, as the council, could then consider what the sequencing options are and what makes the best sense.
And if we're able to keep the council members in their own areas, then that would determine which areas are up for election next year.
Yes.
Right. And the terms that are up is Councilmember Andrusik and Councilmember King.
Correct. Okay. Any other comments, additions? I think we're busy contemplating in our minds. I appreciate the presentation, Mr. Phillips, and I look forward to seeing what our residents and council members come up with. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I look forward to meeting you again in January.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go back to public comment. I didn't close it. Was there anybody else who needed to speak? We were running 2 minutes into our 6:20 start time, which I apologize for.
I didn't have any comments, but I did want to say just one thing where the district-based elections page is. It's under the government tab, and all the way down at the bottom it says district-based elections. And all the data that we do as we go forward is on that page. So from the very bottom going up with all of the data that gets added as we go along.
Thank you very much.
Just so you know.
Okay, so I'm closing public comment. We've had our public hearing. We're moving on to council member comment/items. Councilman Andrusik, any comments/items?
I didn't have very much time. I may have something that comes to me.
Okay, you
Thank you. I was in a
speak up.
different thought zone.
Vice Mayor Sanchez, before I move on and totally forget you out there, what comments and items, important items do you have for us?
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman King?
I do not.
Councilmember Lewis?
I just have one. I want to thank the gentleman that owns, is it the Moki?
Quincy, the Mokes?
Yes, or the
Wow,
Mokes.
yes.
My kids had a blast. They thought it was great, and it was really fun driving those things. So I just wanted to thank him for providing those to city council members for the parade.
That was really enjoyable. It was nice of city staff to put the signs together for us, even though I couldn't figure it out, but I appreciate that.
And all the decorations.
And the decorations, and it really was fun. I'd like to bring back, if we could, I know we don't meet again until August. Our governor has asked for a voluntary 15% reduction in water in communities because the drought is going to be a big one. Solvang's already moved to allow sprinklers certain hours of the day. I think it's something our council should discuss to stay a little proactive. If that's okay with council? Okay.
Bring that item back for August 12th.
Thank you very much.
I'll ask, would you like to have a representative from Central Coast Water Authority
That
to-
may,
to maybe explain why? Because they'll say, what did we do?
to tell us how dry we
Because the
really are.
wells have to move a certain way, or they won't give you water.
Well, you've been very informative, but that might be a good
No,
idea.
If they're willing to do it, I think, and I
Yeah.
think they will, it would be a good.
Thank you. Written communications,
No written communications this evening.
committee reports.
I've not met.
I've got no committee reports. I've got 2 next week, nothing yet. Moving on to agenda item number 7 then. We have resolution number 21-12, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, supporting the County of Santa Barbara Phase 2 Community Action Plan to address homelessness. Ms. Kiefer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of the City Council. On April 22nd of this year, City Council received a report on the County of Santa Barbara Phase 2 Community Action Plan to address homelessness. This plan included
This plan is included in Exhibit A of the resolution in your staff report. The plan includes 5 key strategies to address homelessness priorities with greater elaboration on implementation. The plan calls for a regional approach focusing on priority populations, new resources, and performance. An analysis was conducted for the county to assist in identifying the housing shelter needs using multiple data sources. This analysis assisted the county in identifying resource gaps and allowed the county to meet threshold criteria for applying for federal and state funds related to addressing homelessness. As I mentioned, the phase 2 plan included a detailed implementation work plan, which outlined specific strategies and actions, suggested community partners, timelines for accomplishing specific actions, and potential resources to be used. And so the plan adopted by the county in February of 2021, the county is now asking that key jurisdictions, including Buellton, within the county adopt the plan. So this would both ensure compliance with state of California requirements to demonstrate a regional planning process, encourage community engagement, planning coordination, and funding collaboration. As a result of the April 22nd meeting with the City Council, council members had requested additional information about the current and specific needs of those experiencing homelessness in Buellton and the Santa Ynez Valley. So tonight, via Zoom, we have Lucille Boss with the County of Santa Barbara in attendance, as well as Valerie Kissel from People Helping People here tonight to provide some additional information to the council regarding homelessness in the Santa Ynez Valley and Buellton, and also recent activities of People Helping People related to homelessness in Buellton. Included in the staff report are some details pertaining to the current housing situation in Buellton. I won't go through all of the information in detail. However, if you do have any questions on the information, I'm happy to answer any of those questions. So no fiscal impacts would result as a result of the adoption of the plan, of the resolution tonight. And as the resolution in the packet spells out, the purpose of the adoption of the resolution is to adopt the Phase 2 Community Action Plan to address homelessness by reference and in support of the plan's overall intent. Adoption of the resolution tonight would not create any obligation of the City of Buellton to take or approve any specific action or implementation project included in the plan. So with that, the recommendation before you tonight is that the City Council consider adoption of resolution number 21-12, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, supporting the County of Santa Barbara Phase 2 Community Action Plan. That concludes my reports, and I'm available for questions. If there are none for me, perhaps Valerie Kissel from People Helping People or Lucille Boss may be able to answer them. And they have also prepared a short presentation to address some of your questions from the April 22nd meeting.
Perfect. Okay, before we get into that, are there any questions for Andrea? Vice Mayor Sanchez, any questions? Okay.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. I just had a quick one. In reading the presentation, we are still short 61 very low income units and 40 low income units, RENA numbers that need to be built by 2023. I know that RENA isn't like a strict, we're going to be in the doghouse,
Right.
But are we close with oncoming projects?
So we do have some, housing projects in the pipeline. Whether or not those, when they do get built, count toward this current RENA cycles numbers or the following will just depend on when they pull building permits for those projects. So it really just depends. It could be either one at this point. So
thank you. Thank you. All righty. I guess we should go first to Lucille Boss, and then we'll have Valerie step up. So Lucille, I appreciate you being here the last time to make this presentation, and we did throw a couple questions at you.
Yes, good evening. Thank you so much, Mayor and council members. We're pleased to be back. And as Ms. Kiefer noted, during the April 22nd meeting, council members requested additional information about specific current needs of those experiencing homelessness, rent burden, and in need of affordable housing and other services in Buellton specifically. So you'll see those details outlined in the discussion section of the staff report, which I believe begins on page 29 of your your agenda packet. So I won't go into those details. They are written there for you. Instead, I wanted to note that there are currently 7 persons who are experiencing homelessness and are in the coordinated entry system who are seeking housing. But I really wanted to turn it over to Ms. Kissel with San Ynez Valley People Helping People to talk about Buellton's current activities, needs, and challenges. So I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you very much. And this is Valerie Kissel from People Helping People. Welcome.
Thank you, Lucille. Madam Mayor and council members, I'm Valerie Kissel, the CEO from People Helping People. And I first of all wanted to let you all know how much I enjoyed your appearance at the parade. It looked like you were having a lot of fun, and I think it was just exactly what the community needed. But tonight I want to talk to you about an overview of our community and what the housing situation looks like and the amount of individuals that are experiencing homelessness. We're one of a number of agencies that work with our homeless population or our vulnerable populations here in the Valley. And we collaborate very much with PAMNICO at the Senior Center and also the St. Vincent de Paul group. But this evening, I wanted to make it clear that the statistics that I'm going to share with you are strictly PHP data. And just coming off our most recent fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, I wanted to let this council know that we've assisted 55 households with housing support services. And we have spent over $117,000 in the Valley for housing support services. Now, of that total amount, $47,000 has been spent here in Buellton. And we use those dollars to either attain housing or keep people in their current housing. I want to break this down a little bit further. We have 4 households here in Buellton that have been supported with rental assistance in the amount of $7,500, and 14 households that have received $39,572 in rapid rehousing assistance. And I wanted to point out to you that the rapid rehousing funding comes to us through the continuum of care in Santa Barbara County. So I think a lot of you know that PHP has offices located on all of our school district campuses. And we enjoy a fantastic relationship here with the Buellton School District, and we will be starting 19 years of service located on their campus. Most of our referrals do come from the schools because it's a very trusting and close relationship. Each case that we work is very, very unique, but I wanted to share with you tonight a story about a household from Buellton that we're currently working. This was a referral from Haunted School. And when we first met this single mom, she was fleeing from domestic violence and was living in her car with her 2 school-age children. So she started case management with PHP, and late last year, we were able to successfully get her housed. And she was very, very grateful. I want to let you know that this is a working mother, but she is underemployed. And with the amount of money that she makes with childcare and some other health-related issues, she finds it very, very difficult to find affordable housing. Now, sadly, the apartment complex that we were able to house this family in, due to complications from COVID, the landlord has to sell. So now this individual, this household, this family is again facing housing instability. But the good news is that just this morning, we were able to assist her with completing an application for another housing opportunity. The one thing that I want to tell you is that client choice is so important for a housing plan to really be successful. This woman was born and raised in Buellton. All of her support services are here. She wants to stay in Buellton, and she wants her children to be educated in Buellton. So I want to thank you for your consideration this evening, and I would ask you to support this resolution so that we can continue to leverage funding and other support services from the county. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Questions for either Ms. Voss?
Well, you may or may not know the answer to this question. If you go to page 80 or 98 on our agenda item here, and I did read this
I don't
entire.
think she has it handy, but you're going to have to fill her in.
I did read the entire 100 pages of this report. And what kind of disturbs me is going through this report that looks like there is a lot of money just thrown at housing. And then at the bottom of that page, which would be in your report, would be 63. It says the most recent annual total funding to address homelessness, Santa Barbara County was $39.4 million. But if you look at the pie chart, that's to me what was rather disturbing, is that after doing personal research and find out that 26% of the homeless people are severely mentally ill, 34% are substance and alcohol abuse, which is 60% of homeless people basically are circumstances that either are beyond their control or were at one time within their control and now are out of their control. So if you, referring back to the pie chart, it says there's 50% capital improvements, 29% of housing, 9% supportive services. And then this is the part that I find disturbing, is that only 10% is outreach and homeless prevention. So to me, and I don't know where this will go or how far it'll go or if anybody even cares what I'm saying, but in my common sense mind, some of these other parts of this pie chart should be split up in the homeless prevention and programs to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place, or if they are homeless, should be spent money well spent to either get people the mental health that they need, or people that are drug abusers or alcohol abusers, or, you know, got thrown out because they're wife beaters, whatever the case is that, you know, how much of this $39 million is being spent for prevention of the problem in the first place? So that would only be 10% of that $39 million according to this pie chart. So
I don't want to speak on behalf of the county, but I can tell you that oftentimes what we need to do is we need to manage what the eligible expenses are, the eligible costs that we can expend funds on. And the focus has been more on rapid rehousing and getting people into housing versus outreach and prevention. And that's just how the monies are, the buckets of monies, if you will, are divvied out. Lucille, is that a pretty good representation of, and I don't want to speak for the county, but I know PHP does not have any prevention dollars.
Right.
We do not have any outreach dollars.
Right.
Thank you. And Mayor, council members, I'll note, just as Ms. Kissel just did, all of the funding that comes through the county as the administrative entity for the continuum of care, or to the county or through the county itself, typically is one-time and limited in eligible activities and eligible costs. I will also note that those figures are from a previous year, and we've seen, as I think all of you know, an influx of one-time funds in response to COVID-19 impacts. And a lot of that has been dedicated to homelessness prevention and other related services. So I'm happy to send those figures as well. But again, most of those are one-time, and they're very specific to be dedicated to COVID-19 impacts.
And if I may follow up on that, Madam Mayor, since you are intimately involved in this, perhaps that you can pass on my thoughts to the people that are in the trying to deal with this homeless problem. Is that, me personally, I don't speak for the whole council, is maybe there should be more dollars directed towards prevention and getting people off the street on mental health issues or drug abuse issues, rather than just trying to throw dollars at housing rather than stopping the problem before it begins. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. There really isn't an answer to that one. I mean, it's a very complicated problem.
Right, but I'm not privy to being in the conversations that are had by people that are trying to deal with this problem. So if you can pass that on for me, I'd appreciate it.
Alrighty. Any other questions? Thank you very much. I'm opening this up for a public comment. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
No, ma'am.
Closing public comment down, bringing it back to council for resolution number 21-12.
I move to approve resolution number 21-12.
All righty, Linda?
Okay, Councilmember Lewis.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
No.
Vice Mayor Sanchez.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Thank you very much for your involvement. Congratulations on people helping people. It's been what? And you taking over as CEO? About a year now, huh?
It'll be a year in August, so I'm getting there. And I can't wait to see your float next year. Thank you very much for the consideration.
Thank you for being here tonight. Moving on with agenda item number 8, our 50% progress report, the draft update of the 2005 Community Design Guidelines. And this is presented by Ms. Tucker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. In response to City Council direction, staff has been working with the city's contract architect, Ravat Albrecht and Associates. We just refer to them as Ravat for short. We've been working with them to update the 2005 Community Design Guidelines. And if we could start with the slideshow. Okay. The primary scope of this work effort is a number of items. First and foremost, we needed to be able to develop a template that resembled the existing formatting of the 2005 Community Design Guidelines. We did not have this in a Word document that we could actually process and the whole layout. So that was the beginning of the effort. And we wanted to create a template that we could insert new and revised chapters into, and then republish the entire document once the updates are approved. So the focus of the updates included revising the table of contents and the introduction as needed to account for the new and amended chapters. And quite importantly was to reference the Avenue Flag specific plan, which had a very important design element adopted as part of it, and that was the Art Deco, Art Moderne style. So there was a new section added for this in the architectural chapter, and it was as an addendum. Of equal importance was the need to revise the agrarian style of the architectural design style. And we picked up a few other anomalies that we needed to address, and this was mainly as part of the illustrations of potential improvements that were in the current design guidelines, many of which are not appropriate at this point. They were before and after examples of buildings that are located by and large in the Avenue Flag specific plan. And since we have a new design requirement there, the old before and after examples are no longer applicable. So I'm going to go through, well, actually, before I do that. So when the contract was approved for updating the design guidelines and City Council discussion, it was requested that we bring back a 50% progress report of the draft updates so that council can review the general direction that the updates were going in and really take a look at the updated imagery that was being provided and to see if it was going in the direction that council felt comfortable with. So that is what we are doing this evening. And the slides that follow are going to highlight the revisions that have taken place. I attempted to do this in the staff report, but wanted to put the slides up on the screen so council could have an opportunity to comment on them as we go along. The first few of these are pretty self-explanatory. We needed to update the table of contents, obviously, to reflect the new chapters, and I kind of circled the item that we did. Similarly, on the next slide, some of the main items, I didn't include everything, but in the introduction, sections. I mean, we deleted references to the redevelopment project. We inserted references to the Avenue Flag specific plan and the new Art Moderne design style, and just cleanup items as needed for that. So with regards to the agrarian chapter, the overall focus was updating the updating this chapter in order to encourage a mix of interior wall materials for visual interest, to consider alternate materials and more contemporary expressions of the design style, to reduce the percentage of board and batten siding used in new projects, and overall to encourage a higher quality materials being used in the buildings. And I just highlighted some of the sections that were updated, but what I'd mainly like the council to focus on, in addition to some of the changes, but to highlight, to comment on the new images that are being included. We felt that some of the images in our current design guidelines pertaining to agrarian were a little bit dated, and there were some more modern examples that better exemplified the direction that we were hearing from city staff, rather from city council.
I like them. Yeah.
So, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on each one of these slides. There's 6 pages in the agrarian section, so we can slowly go through them. And if the council would like to comment on any of them. On this slide in particular, I would like to point out that the third image on the bottom is actually one of the after sketches that came out of the illustrations of before and after examples. And this happened to be a reimagining of the Parkway Market. But we felt it was a nice example of an agrarian building, so we moved it as an example into this section. So similar, we can just go through this, and if council has any comments, please let me know.
Is Parkway interested?
It's hard to tell.
It'd be nice.
I had a question.
Certainly, Vice Mayor Sanchez.
I'm just trying to follow this, but can you reference a page number? Because I'm just going off my, out of my packet. When you, because I can't see the pictures if you have them on a slide.
157.
Okay, thank you.
157.
Okay, page numbers in the agenda.
Thank you.
Oh, we have blue.
So we're currently, the slide that is showing is
161.
161.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Give me just a second. Let me see if we can fix this. Hold on just.
Okay.
Just one moment here. Let me see if I can share this so I can.
They can see Daniel's because he shared his screen.
Just a second. Let me do this. We're not sharing that to the public apparently, so let's do this.
When that happens.
It'd be nice if we could share. These are really
thought it was being
wonderful.
shared and
I like the
apparently
updates.
So let me,
It's shared.
is it? You see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yep.
Okay, because I'm not seeing it here. Oh, hold on. Let's see.
You should pick the document, not the monitor.
Councilman King, you had a question while they're working on this?
Yes, is there any possibility, and I have obviously been vocal about agrarian, that we can take that completely out of our
No,
design guidelines?
no.
This is not 1700.
Look at the updates.
I did see the update. No, I think those are hideous.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious.
I know you don't like the batten
Well,
boards,
most of these
but
are.
these
what
have
they-
all been changed. No, it's not.
Look back at them. We agree to disagree.
Let's vote. Let's vote.
I insisted on it.
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
The batten boards.
Batten board.
I know that's,
But you can.
but look at this
Batten
though.
board, okay,
There we
I will relent. if you take batten board completely out, if you want some of these grand styles, there are some that are not batten board. They're grand styles, but to me, they are very dated. This was barns that were built in the Midwest in 1700s. And we live on the West Coast and we do not have ranches that have cattle.
This is the San Ynez Valley.
I understand that, but the cows are all gone.
No,
Show me a cow in Buellton.
call Norm Williams up.
He's outside the city of Buellton.
We're surrounded. We're surrounded. No, I think the updates are beautiful and I really like this. I understand. I've heard about your batten.
Agrarian, but when we take bat and board out of this.
How about just not to be pushed?
To be highly discouraged.
I would like to mention that
Highly
the
discouraged.
Williamson property was all dairy, 400 cow
Yeah, but
farm.
still outside the city of Buellton.
Not the house
Not
itself.
their
Well,
fault.
Not where the barn is.
Anyway,
Not even the lower field. That's part of the city.
That's
John, you can see the
that was
slides
part of his
now.
upper property. I'll agree with that. Highly discouraged.
John, can you see this and everybody in the audience can see it now? Correct? Okay. And John's page
I'm on,
work?
yes, I'm on the same page on my other agenda.
Very important.
Thank you.
Please continue.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for bringing this to our attention also.
That was
and,
my 2 cents.
And thank you,
Always has
Councilmember
been.
King, for the comments and, that staff will take direction from city council on this. So definitely. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so that's the last slide in the agrarian section. The following slide is just under the mission revival section, we're adding a new page and we'll be doing this throughout just to maintain the continuity of the page numbering. So we don't have to actually reinvent the entire document. We're going to insert some pictures, but we're going to add a new page in the mission revival section because we felt it really important. Yeah, the next slide, the before and after example is perfect. This was in the examples previously, and it's the post office building, part of this building that we're sitting in. And it's a really nice example of before and after, and we thought it would be appropriate to have it represented in the mission revival style. So we're moving it there. All righty. Moving on, and I basically described all of this, and we're eliminating that one section, the illustrations. We just took the best of the best and moved it. So this is the Art Deco section. As I mentioned, it's a addendum to the architectural character section. And this is to reflect the design style adopted for the Avenue Flag specific plan, which is basically Art Deco, but it also encompasses the Art Moderne and the the diner, the 50s diner style buildings. So it follows the similar format that the other 4 design styles follow. And rather than focus on specifically some of the language here, unless the council has some questions, we can just slowly go through the pages and view the examples of the buildings that were provided and to see if council has any comments on these, questions. And I would like to add that this is, as I mentioned, provided in the same format that the other design styles are. And as with those other design styles, we are referring back to the specific plan for additional detail where it's not covered in the design guidelines. So it'll be a combination of the 2 documents as well as our municipal code that covers the buildings.
Did the planning commission have consternation with this, or did they just, are they happy with it?
So we have not yet provided this to the planning commission.
I thought-
What
came to
council
us.
asked that this be brought back for a 50% progress report so that they could view and give us comments on the general direction the updates are taking. As we move forward towards the final draft, it is our intent to present it to the Planning Commission and get their input on it. We just, as per council's direction, we wanted to make sure that we were heading in the direction in order to finish off the document.
Thank you.
And so fiscal impact, this is an information item only, seeking feedback and general direction from City Council. And the recommendation here is that council provide comments and direction to staff and Ravat for moving forward to finalize the CDG update. Specifically to concur with the text modifications, any of the changes we made, the images that are presented in the agrarian chapter and the new Art Deco addendum, and to direct staff and Ravat to finalize the document and bring it back for 100% draft review. And as I mentioned before, upon adoption, these updates would be inserted into the existing 2005 design guidelines document, replacing applicable sections as needed. And then we would republish the entire document as the 2021 Community Design Guidelines update.
Wonderful. Thank you. First of all, before the comments, are there any questions? Vice Mayor Sanchez, any questions?
I guess I had a question. This is all the guidelines and it's supposed to be Art Deco with everything. I'm wondering if we had a project that came in that somebody liked that wasn't exactly Art Deco, but close. If, I wonder how bendable we are on this. If somebody came in and it wasn't exactly one of these Art Deco ones, but it was something different, but approved by the council and the planning. Is that something, is there like a loophole if somebody wanted to do something? Because I know that some developers might not want to do exactly as Art Deco. I know everybody's trying to bend it a little bit to make it something that they like and it's more eye appealing. I'm just wondering how concrete this Art Deco thing is and how far we can bend it.
So, well, there's two approaches to answering this. First of all, in doing the background and the discussion on Art Deco, tried to leave it as broad as possible and to suggest that local influences could be incorporated into an Art Deco style. And they really frequently were throughout the United States when this Art Deco movement moved through the United States. When it first started, there were big skyscrapers being built on the East Coast in the big cities that really represented or reflected the style that started in Europe. And as the movement spread throughout the more rural areas, they started incorporating local influences, local designs. And so, Planning Commission and Council could make an interpretation in some cases that some local influences would be appropriate and attempt to incorporate that into an Art Deco, Art Moderne, some sort of a style that was still in keeping with the general vision that the council has for the specific plan area.
I would imagine if somebody brought a project into planning, that you would look at it and you would maybe make a couple suggestions. And mind you, this Art Deco Moderne is only on Avenue of Flags. That's
Right.
the only part of this town where we're actually looking for it. So I would imagine there'd be some simple ideas that you could do to change a building, to add touches to it, to turn it into something like that.
And so if we're generally working towards the vision, but wanted to adapt it to some more local influences and then again, the other portion to my answer is that if somebody came in with a project that was just really a great project and there was some merit and there were some exceptions that this project would like to seek, exceptions from the specific plan and exceptions from the municipal code. If there's strong enough support for that, we would present that to Planning Commission and City Council with the appropriate type of exception if it's a specific plan amendment. to seek a variance from that. So those are the two possibilities that we'd be looking at.
Does that answer your question, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, opening it up for public comment. I don't believe we have any, but I will check.
No comments.
No public comment. Closing it, bringing it back to council for comments, suggestions. Pardon?
Do we have to adopt this?
No,
No.
no, this is just comments and suggestions. Your Batten board, you have been adamant about that as long as I've known you. But I do believe that there is agrarian that can be done. I mean, some of these pictures in here are spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, with
I
this
will relent to some of those words,
stone.
but building a barn in the middle of town.
We already have one barn.
Yeah, we have a barn.
I think we phased back the board and batten, moved it to the background on this a little bit.
Thanks. Yeah, thankfully.
But I do like the inserts that you've done, the updating that you've done, the clarifications. I think anybody who looks at it can get a feel for what the city is looking at. Any other comments?
I think that we probably should wait for the other 50% and then we'll be all good.
But are they moving in the right
Yes,
direction?
they are moving in the right direction.
Moving in the right direction?
I suppose.
Comments?
No.
Concerns?
Very.
Vice Mayor Sanchez, any comments, concerns? Comments?
No, thank you. Thank you for answering the question.
I truly appreciate you bringing the 50% project back to council for us to look at. I think you're moving in the right direction.
Great, appreciate it.
So
Thank you.
thank you very much. All righty, moving on to agenda item number 9. Preparation of traffic impact analysis guidelines, consideration of professional services agreement with KOA Corporation. Ms. Tucker again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. The City of Buellton's environmental procedures were adopted in 2006 to provide the city staff and the development community local environmental review requirements consistent with the CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. This is the CEQA is administered by the state's Office of OPR, Office of Planning and Research. Since 2006, the CEQA guidelines have gone through several updates, the most recent one being a comprehensive update in 2018, which included updates to the manner in which transportation and traffic impacts are analyzed. And this came out in Senate Bill 743. So SB 743 updates the way transportation impacts are measured in California for new development projects. And with the goal of providing Californians with more options to drive less and reduce the amount of time spent in their cars. The most significant change to the CEQA guidelines as a result of this is the requirement that traffic impacts now be measured with a metric called vehicle miles traveled, VMT. And this is what is to be used for CEQA analyses moving forward. And this became effective in the latter part of 2020. With the adoption of VMT, the consideration of automobile delay measured by level of service, LOS, which is something we're all familiar with and we've heard as an expression of the impact that a project would have on our local roadways. It could no longer be measured as part of the significant environmental impact under CEQA. However, the state, in coming out with guidelines implementing VMT, they also stress that lead agencies can apply some of their traditional operational analyses requirements to projects as long as the analyses were outside of the CEQA process. So it's still left open an avenue for local agencies to consider factors such as existing traffic loads and capacities of the street system, roadway hazards, incompatible uses, parking capacity, all those things that we currently take into consideration as part of development project impacts. So what we are looking at right now is that we need to implement local procedures that establish thresholds for the VMT metrics. And we need to define these thresholds for Buellton specifically, because what we are finding that by and large, the VMT thresholds and metrics that the state was relying on typically referred to larger urbanized communities that have public transit networks more readily available than Buellton does. And so we really need to take a close look at the VMT metrics for Buellton and adopt reasonable metrics here. So one, that's under the CEQA analysis. But because the state also allowed localities to take a look at their local impacts, as long as it's outside of the CEQA process, we also need to better identify and define metrics for measuring those local impacts. So as I mentioned previously, our environmental procedures were adopted in 2006. This includes some very brief parameters for measuring impacts. It says to rely on the CEQA guidelines. It also says that level of service D or worse is a traffic impact, and it says to rely on the congestion management plan to identify other potential impacts. Well, the congestion management plan is no longer in existence. It has been replaced by the SBCAG Regional Transportation Plan, and it was developed countywide. It does not necessarily address Buellton specific thresholds. The LOS of level D, while it is a good metric, but that's not all that exists here locally for us to measure traffic impacts. So we really need to see other types of impacts that we may want to evaluate. So it's really important for us to take a closer look at what the guidelines are for preparing traffic studies for new development projects and the metrics that we are using. And it's important that we do this quickly because there are a number of potential development projects that are either in the wings or may soon be applying for development permits. And we need to be prepared to evaluate them accurately. So what staff is proposing is for the city to prepare a traffic impact analysis guideline document that would be an operational level technical document guided by the state legislation and also informed by local conditions. And to start working on this so that we will have policies in place to evaluate projects that are coming through the pipeline. Concurrently, the circulation element update is also looking at taking into consideration these same state guidelines and legislation that was passed under CEQA. And we're looking at coming up with long-range policy revisions as needed and programs that would need to be incorporated into the circulation element. Once that circulation element update is approved, we anticipate that whatever long-range policies that come out of that would be incorporated into the traffic impact analyses guidelines. But we do need to establish these guidelines quickly, sooner than the circulation element update would necessarily be approved, which is why we're bringing this item before you now. So as part of the general plan update, the general plan land use circulation element update, which we refer to as LUCE for short, KOA Corporation was hired and is part of the team that is working on the LUCE update. As a result, KOA has become familiar with Buellton circulation system and its roadway network, and also familiar with the challenges the city is facing with related to traffic and circulation. And they also have some pretty broad expertise working with other cities on documents similar to the one that Buellton is looking at needing to prepare. So in consideration of their familiarity with the city and given their expertise, staff felt that it would be most cost effective and time efficient for KOA to prepare this TIA guidelines, Transportation Impact Analysis Guidelines. So we requested a proposal from KOA for this work effort, and that proposal is included in your in the staff report. And we have worked with KOA to hone these the scope as much as we possibly can, and just to, we passed it back and forth and had all of our staff look at it and comment on it. And the proposal that is presented to you is being presented to you tonight. The scope and the related budget is for services to prepare the City of Buellton's traffic impact analysis guidelines, their procedures for preparing traffic impact studies, and criteria to be used. And the budget that is being presented is on a time and materials basis. It's a not to exceed budget. So basically, they've really worked with us on the budget too. So they've given this their best shot, and staff is bringing this proposal before council tonight. The proposed budget of $56,200 was not part of the recently adopted city budget. And the reason is because staff really did not have all of the details of the scope of work and the related fee adequately defined. So we've been working on this diligently all this time. So we're bringing this to the council tonight. It would be a general fund expenditure that is proposed, and it would be allocated to the planning department's budget. And this budget adjustment would require a first quarter budget amendment. So staff's recommendation that we're asking from the council is to take the following action: is to authorize the work effort for preparing the traffic impact analysis guidelines, and to direct the city manager to enter into an agreement with KOA Corporation for the professional services outlined in attachment 1, with a total compensation not to exceed $56,200.
Thank you very much.
With that, I'm available to answer any questions that you might have. So,
questions?
I have several.
Certainly.
So I
Councilmember
know
Lewis.
I'm the newbie here, but can you answer? I have several. First, is this required? Is there some statute or legislation that makes this report something that we are required to have?
So we are required to adopt guidelines for the VMT. And that's part of the CEQA requirements. We are required to have local thresholds of significance. We can use the state's guidelines that they provide for us, but it's a one-size-fits-all that does not necessarily address Buellton's unique conditions.
And how does doing this help us to the point of $60,000? Like, instead of adopting the state's one size fits all and using those and then using our local discretion, which I don't know how much we have in this case, what does having this study do for us that warrants that? Does that make sense?
So, and perhaps I didn't stress it adequately enough during my presentation, but it is addressed in the staff report. So the CEQA guidelines establishes the VMT, and even if we come up with local thresholds, which we're required to, they would be of such a nature that most, and I'm not saying most, but many of the projects that are typically proposed for Buellton are of such a size and nature that they would get screened out of requiring a CEQA analysis. So they wouldn't be required to do an EIR. And they may not.
I don't think I get what you're saying even
Okay.
to this point. I'm
But, no,
sorry.
so
like, are you saying that without local measures, the projects that would come into Buellton that might otherwise work are being screened out because we don't have proper measures?
So if I could just answer the second part to that, and then you can help clarify it. So we have the CEQA analysis, which is this VMT, which is now required for us to adopt your local measures. Many of the projects would not be required to go through that. So we would not be able to have mitigation measures established for those projects at the CEQA level.
It gives us less control.
It's less control. And what that means, and this is the second part to my answer that I didn't stress in my presentation, is that it makes it even more important for us to have adequately defined local guidelines to do this non-CEQA type analysis that specifically has local metrics. We can evaluate impacts based upon what we know to be our local conditions, and to have mitigation measures that are definable, defensible, and that we can put into project approvals via the conditions of approval.
Okay.
And
I
this
think
is
I get
becoming
it.
really important because we have projects that are coming before us that, for a variety of reasons, and again, state legislation, they're kind of putting them into a category of, well, city, you don't have a lot of say about this, so you just need to approve projects. And so we want to have enough local, definable, defensible control. And that's basically why we want
And
to
is
do
it
this.
a density thing? Are we saying like if we don't have this local control stuff, we can put 10 houses here because it falls within whatever the state's one size fits all. But if we had local control, we could see that really for Buellton, we could only fit 5. Is that sort of what this is doing?
Or at least we could mitigate them with specific conditions that pertain to that particular project.
Okay,
So-
that they would have to
Right.
do to mitigate what the impact is, which we otherwise would not have without this.
Correct.
Okay, and then last question. Is there no other way for us to get this information locally or in-house without contracting out?
Well,
Not really.
So, I don't know. I don't know
We
enough
actually
to
talked
know
about
that
this.
question, so
We
I apologize.
talked about this.
We
Yeah.
did, we discussed, and let me kind of sum up and re-answer your questions for the benefit of the public.
Yeah.
We're not required, the city is not required to enter into this contract. However, failure to enter into this contract or at least to do the work that's here is to relinquish what little control the city may have over projects coming before us in the future. And in particular, when we're dealing with housing projects, we need to maintain all the control that we have to give the city council and the planning commission the maximum amount of discretion that can be allowed under the state legislation. Without this contract, or without the work product that this contract produces, we are left to utilize documents that are established for large urbanized areas like San Francisco and Los Angeles that do not address specific concerns that a community like Buellton would want addressed. So in particular, that's what the goal of this is. Could we do this without a contract like this? Potentially. We don't have currently the staff time that would be required to focus the expertise both from a planning and an engineering standpoint to do this. Where we're benefiting from KOA Crane is they're currently working on our circulation element as part of our land use and circulation element update. If we utilize them, they can develop these work products in conjunction with the policy development that they're undergoing right now for the circulation element. If we decide to utilize someone else or to try and do this in-house, we need really to wait until KOA Crane is done and the circulation element is adopted so that these work products can be produced in light of the adopted city policy. Because KOA is involved in specifically putting those together right now, we're kind of getting a head start on this. So
Timing is important.
timing is
isn't it?
very important.
Timing is
We
important.
have 4 or 5 projects in the pipeline right now that we anticipate coming to hearing in the next 6 months. So
Took me a second.
we need to work those.
That's fine. Good questions, yes.
I'm just still
Oh, with
learning
all these
the acronyms,
abbreviations,
and I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh,
Very
my
good
God,
questions,
so
and
I
so thank
appreciate
you.
it. I get it now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if I may just add, this is a whole new way of doing traffic analyses. It's the first time that they have changed, the state has changed, radically changed, fundamentally changed the way. VMT. And it's we no longer can measure how many cars you put on the roadway. We have to measure vehicle miles traveled. So how many miles of vehicle, well, the length of vehicle trips, that
And
that
isn't it by
project is going to
residents?
generate.
And it's by residents, not by people driving through town.
Trust me, we do not
All
have
these
time to
non-cook
explain
people.
this
It is-
tonight. It is
and
that, it is that
Yes. And all the cities are
really obscure.
scratching their heads because it's such a
Uh,
new concept
yeah.
that it's, it's
So is-
challenging. for
So
all
is
of us.
SB CAG scratching their
Yeah.
heads.
Everyone is.
For
at the
sure.
moment.
Are we positioning ourselves to be ahead of the curve? Or are we behind the curve?
I would say we're probably right on target.
Yeah.
We are.
We're ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, I have one question.
Sure.
Under SB 743, why did they take out LOS as part of their environmental impact?
Well, I think it
Was
has
there
to
any
do with,
explanation for that, or?
it has to do
Go
with,
ahead, Rose.
Yeah, it has to do with the greenhouse gas emissions and trying to reduce gas emissions, all the fuel being used and air quality and stuff and trying to reduce miles, literally miles traveled. So that's what they want to measure on, the direct impact to the environment versus, LOS is more of local convenience, congestion, things like that.
And so with Rose's example of a project that puts 100 cars out on our roadways, but they only go a half a mile or a mile, it's going to cause a huge amount of congestion, but it will cause, potentially no impacts under CEQA because they're traveling a mile.
so I think, yeah, even more important is to, or just as equally important is to establish some metrics for level of service per our general plan to be able to
Absolutely.
tie it back to that.
I get that, but how realistically can you say, we're putting 9 houses here? You would have to ask them, where do you work? Where do
It's,
you
it's a
commute
very
to? I mean,
complicated process and there are
Yeah,
formulas
that's-
to try and estimate this. But again, and this is what we get back to, this legislation was developed and the processes involved in calculating this were developed with large metropolitan areas in mind. So when they're talking about VMT, they're referring to someone who would say live in Ventura and commute into the San Fernando Valley or commute up here to Buellton from Ventura. They're not talking about the bulk of what we see here, which is a relatively short commute period. Especially for the new type of housing that's coming here, we anticipate that will be much more locally oriented. By focusing on VMT, where that may result in in significant mitigation measures in a more urbanized area, by focusing on VMT in a small community such as Buellton, they're essentially removing the ability to mitigate a lot of these impacts, because most of the impacts that we see around here, to air quality included, are going to be based on congestion and the concentration of vehicle emissions at our congested intersections.
But
So
that's what they've taken out of here.
they've taken it out. So what
Which
we're
doesn't make as much sense because a vehicle idle is
Yeah.
producing more CO2 than
exactly.
it is sitting at 3 cycles of the traffic light than it is driving.
So by taking the LOS out of the CEQA realm, we need to then put it into our general plan so that we have the ability to still utilize that as a metric to reduce impacts in the city. If we don't do what this work product is proposing right now, we're left to simply using VMT, which is not going to address the concerns that the city council is going to have in the future.
But that's realistically a statistical swag.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You will
And your
not
point.
find me defending the choice to move to VMT,
No.
but it is the law of the land right now. And so what we're trying to do here is respond to that in a way that maximizes the city's flexibility in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Councilman King.
Apparently our city council is in charge of the state.
Vice Mayor Sanchez, do you have any questions?
No, I just figure that VMTs are like a half a mile, right? So if it's going to help
1 mile city.
to give us power to legislate it, I think that's a good idea. So thank you.
Good. All righty, I'm going to open it up to public comment real quick. Or is there anybody who wants to jump in on this one, Linda?
No comments.
All righty, I'm closing it down, bringing it back to council for discussion and possible action.
I move to approve the agreement.
Second.
Councilmember Lewis.
Aye.
And Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Sanchez.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you for explaining a
Thank
very,
you.
very
Sorry.
complicated.
No, thank you for your
No,
questions,
It
really.
is incredibly complicated and it doesn't make much sense to our community and this is to
It's the best way to protect
truly
the
appreciate.
way we develop.
And we too appreciate the questions because,
Definitely.
it helps us to focus on the things that we really need to include and
How this
consider.
pertains to our city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on, agenda item number 10, consideration of First Amendment to City Manager Employment Agreement and discussion of salary adjustment for city manager for fiscal year 2021-22. Mr. Murphy, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor and Council, as you know, and as the public was informed in the minutes of your meeting of June 24th, you did perform a performance evaluation for the city manager at that time. You unanimously approved an extension of his contract for a 5-year term, which will now expire on June 30th of 2026. Due to changes in the law over the past decade, the discussion of any salary adjustment or benefits adjustment for an executive officer of the city, like the city manager, must be done in open session. So before you tonight is the city manager's requests. He has requested a 2% cost of living increase and has also requested a change to the term of the loan that is part of his salary. That loan has allowed him to purchase a home within the community, and he's asked that the term of the repayment be equivalent or relate to the term of the contract extension, which would mean that it too would continue out to June 31st of 2026. Now is the time for me to step out of the way, let the 5 of you discuss with the city manager here in open session, and then we'll take any direction you give us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our city attorney, Mr. Murphy? Vice Mayor Sanchez, any questions?
No, not at this time. I did check, thinking about the extension of the loan. I think it's a good deal for us and for the community to extend that the loan terms.
Okay. I'll open it up to the public real quick before we get into closing public comment and bringing it for discussion. Anybody out there, Linda?
Nobody out there.
Closing public comment, bringing it back to council for discussion. I think council would agree that the 2% COLA is totally in order. Okay, don't hear any arguments there. And although the city manager has saved the city a lot of money, with COVID, I'm a little bit leery of a percentage increase, a monetary increase in his salary that affects CalPERS and other issues. We don't know quite yet where COVID is going. It looks like it might be going away, but now we have the Delta variant. I'd like to be looking at either the housing loan, forgiving a portion of the housing loan. The city council, our city manager, we pay part of his health insurance. We could up that to help bring up his salary without it affecting CalPERS. I think if we get through COVID and next year looks really, really good, that perhaps he deserves a really nice raise. But I mean, those are just my thoughts. I was thinking if we forgave $10,000 on the housing loan, there's a $150,000 loan.
So I'll play devil's advocate
Mhm.
in that I think it hurts Scott to not put it on his base salary because we're taking away from his retirement that he is rightfully earning, that everybody else in the staff on the staff is earning. And considering that salary adjustment, the 2% was included in the budget that we approved for him as well.
Not for him at the time, but
It was just for
It
That
says
was-
the budget for fiscal year 21, 22 anticipated a 2% COLA for the city.
They
manager.
anticipated it on the budget, but it was not given to him then.
Oh, no, I know, I
Yeah,
know. That's
okay,
what I'm saying. What I'm
okay,
saying is
okay.
it's not gonna hurt detriment to the budget because it's already in there.
Right, and that would help him for his retirement.
Yes, so I think that that's important, looking at retirement and making sure that he
I
isn't.
agree with the
taken away
2%
from that.
COLA. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
And then looking at the loan, if you take what the amount of the 2% is, which I think it's somewhere around 3,000 something.
3,600.
Yeah, 3,600. Are you saying to take 10,000 off the loan in addition to the 2% COLA? Or?
Correct.
Oh, never mind. Then I don't know. You do. Sorry, you're good.
You know, we could up his health benefits. We pay $750 a month. We could up that to $800. That would be $6,000. We could forgive $10,000 of the loan. That would help a little bit. That is,
What would
I was
help you
told
more?
taxable
That was
income.
my question too. What is in the best interest
Yeah,
of
what
you
helps
and your
you?
family?
Well, this is where we get into issues, and this is why
Is your wife listening tonight?
I always have to assume that she is. This is why I gave the city council some different options, because I recognize, having worked with the city finance director and preparing the budget over the past couple of years and looking at the revenues and the projections, that the city's certainly not out of the woods at this point. And while, and I've expressed to a couple of you that eventually, yes, I would like to see a pay increase should the city council determine it appropriate, that would include an increase to my retirement, my pension program. But at this point, the city may be better served by doing something that's a little less long-term in nature. When you add a percentage to my salary, as you do with any of the other employees, not only are there PERS costs involved, but there are other costs as well, deferred compensation and such, which could wind up being a significant percentage higher than what we're looking at here. So as I said, my primary concerns are the cost of living adjustment and the extension of the term of the repayment. Anything beyond that is, given the state that the city is in right now, we would certainly be appreciative of. Obviously, from strictly a financial standpoint, a percentage increase to the salary would be of more benefit to the family in the long run. But recognizing the impact that it might have on the city at this particular point in time and where we're at in the COVID pandemic situation, the city council may want to look at a less aggressive approach.
So if you had to weigh forgiving 10,000 on the loan or
Mhm.
increasing your health benefits, which effectively puts more money in your pocket every month, which would you prefer?
The forgiveness of the loan would probably be more helpful at that. Yes.
I mean, you could do both if you wanted, but if we do the $10,000 loan, and that's 10,000, that's what, 1.8% of the income, and then the 2% COLA is 3.8. I mean, I think we all agree that if the city was totally flush and we knew it was going to stay flush, that, I mean, he saved us so much money just in recent contract negotiations that he's well deserving of a raise. And if council disagrees with me, I mean, I'm really happy that we have him as our city manager. I want to make sure that we keep him as our city manager, although we did just get you for 5 more years.
You're gonna get sick of us.
And we certainly can extend the time period of the loan for that 5 years as well.
Totally
Yeah.
doable. I think it makes sense for it to coincide with the contract.
Vice Mayor Sanchez, do you have any suggestions, any ideas out there?
No. Sorry.
I'm just calculating some things. So as far as I was thinking on the block right now, it would be a 2% raise, and which is cost of living, and the extension of the loan. Any other ideas of whatever somebody wants to discuss? I'll be willing to discuss it with, but I didn't have any other new ideas.
I'd be willing to move the extension of the loan, the granting of the 2% COLA with a 10,000 forgiveness to the housing loan, if that's something that everyone's agreeable to.
Second.
Okay, we're gonna leave the health benefits as they are right now then. The 10,000 and the 2%.
Because he said it was more beneficial to him for that.
Okay. You could give them both.
Make that motion.
I mean, that would be going from a 2.8% to about that's another 6,000.
Matter, it's another 600.
It's 50
$50
a month is 600.
600.
Thank you very
Sure.
much.
Sorry.
I used to be an accountant.
I'll amend my motion to include that aspect as well.
Second the amendment.
All righty, we've got a first and a second for a 2% COLA, an extension of the loan, a $10,000 loan forgiveness, and a 50,000 or yeah, it's a good thing I'm not doing this anymore, isn't it? $50 a month increase in the health benefits.
Okay. Councilmember Lewis.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrzejczyk.
Madam Mayor, and my cohorts, I appreciate Vice Mayor's analysis and motion. Support that. And I am in agreement with Alicia's approach. So I vote aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go back. Hang on. Okay, and Vice Mayor Sanchez
Aye.
and Mayor Sierra.
Aye. And thank you very much for the last year that you've given the city of Buellton.
Thank you very much. I really enjoy working here.
It shows.
It's not to like about us.
Oh, good gracious, don't get him started. City managers report.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I don't have much of a city manager's report this evening. I did want to start by just announcing to the public, I'm sure you've heard it already, tomorrow night in Oak Park, we have our second movie in the park and our final movie in the park for this season. At 7:30 tomorrow night is going to be playing, I'm sorry, I've got Goonies written down. It's not Goonies, it's Avatar. Yes, the James Cameron science fiction film. So that will be playing tomorrow. I believe they will have popcorn and hot chocolate available for all attendees, 7:30 in Oak Park tomorrow night. Lastly, I would just like to give a thanks to our finance department, our finance director, Chanel Zamora, and the rest of her staff. Last week, we had auditors come and visit the city. As it always is, it's a stressful time for our finance department when the auditors are here. But as is typically the case, as I'm led to understand, it usually winds up being a very stress-free process for everyone else at City Hall, including the auditors, because our finance department does an outstanding job at putting the materials the auditors need right at their fingertips. They're in and out in record time. I believe they spent 3 or 3.5 days at City Hall last week, which is an extremely low period of time in my experience for auditors that come through and do the level of review that they do. They did leave last week and informed our finance director that they had no comments at all or concerns regarding the city's record keeping and finances. So I'd like to thank our finance department for making that a smooth transition and for making us look really good. Thank you.
All righty, thank you.
And I'd like to thank Chanel personally for killing it every single time. Every time we have had some financial audit or anything, it's like spot on every time.
It helps that I'm not in the accounting in the
Yeah.
finance department.
But you're a good postmaster.
I was a good postmaster. All righty. With that, I adjourn our city council meeting. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, August 12th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. Did we have one more?
No.
Okay. All righty. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Nice to see.